You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening. Well, we're going to do several things. We take you to Chris Taliaferro. He's running for one of the aldermanic candidates in the 29th Ward. He is the challenger. And we're going to be talking about his race, of course, and the issues in that race, and then some of the spillover that are more general to the city council in general. And then we're also going to talk about the mayor's race, about Ram and Chewy. We're also going to talk sort of in a retrospective of some of what we've been doing for the last month or two as we've been inviting people. So the main areas in the 29th Ward, you mentioned Austin.
Yes.
Other neighborhoods, Galewood, right?
Galewood, Montclair, Belmont Heights, Shores Village.
What about Lawndale? Is Lawndale still there?
West Lawndale, yes.
West Lawndale, okay. Would you describe that as the west side, the far west side? How would you talk about it generally? If you think of the quadrants of Chicago, do we have we have an east side? I don't know. We certainly have a south side and a west side. And we certainly have a north side. I don't know if anybody ever talks about the east side of Chicago, do we?
Not that I'm aware of.
So we have the north side, and then we've got a south side, and then we got the west side. And where are you, when people say the west side, would you say you're central, far west? Where are you in that west side of Chicago?
We're on the far west side of
Far west,
Chicago.
okay.
The 36th Ward.
Are you past the United Center?
We are past the United Center.
So you're like going out to Austin.
From Cicero.
If you were to go down Madison, you start downtown. Let's give people an idea. Start downtown on Madison, and you start going west toward the United Center. How do you get to sort of the 29th Ward from there?
You
go past the United Center?
Go past
keep going west on Madison?
Keep going Madison. And once you hit Cicero, you start to get into the Austin community.
Okay.
But that encompasses, the remapped portion of the 29th Ward, which includes the old 36. Now you're talking more northwest. So that's the northwest portion of the ward. Whereas the Austin community, which is
like straight west.
Is straight west.
So is it the blue line that you would take? What do you take if you're coming downtown and you want to hop on the CTA? What's the train that goes just straight west? I think it is
the Green Line.
It's the Green Line.
The Green Line.
That would go right from downtown, essentially the loop, out
That's
to
correct.
Austin? Okay.
And however, you can take the blue line as well. The blue line will let you off on the southern portion of the ward.
So there's a bit of crime there.
It is.
It'd be understating that. So crime is a major issue. Is crime, is it getting less crime, more crime, stay the same? What's happened in the last 6 years? So we'll give a grade to Deborah Graham. Deborah could have been here. We asked her to be here. We called her several weeks before. Never heard back. Left messages, just never heard back. I called today and spoke with Mike Carson, who said he kind of runs things. Said she couldn't make it. He said, sorry, because we got their wires crossed. No, Mike, we didn't get our wires crossed. I left a message several times inviting her, telling her when we thought we would be, telling her who we thought we'd have. She could have come out before. She could, we tape sometimes a segment on one day, sometimes another. Mm-hmm. So that's a political phrase. We didn't get our wires crossed. Deborah Graham and you, and I guess you worked for Deborah Graham, just decided she didn't care enough about our viewers, her voters, to show up. That's all. So you'll see several times during the show, we'll be talking to Chris, and he'll be telling us her position. Well, we don't know Deborah's position because she didn't care enough to be here. Now, we're not endorsing anybody, but we do endorse the notion that every candidate everywhere should go anytime, any place to deliver his message about the issues, or her message, right?
I agree with you, Jeff.
Especially, and if you're an alderman for 6 years, it should be a piece of cake. Make your way there, because we air throughout the city of Chicago. We air on the west side, we air on the south side, we air all over, certainly in her ward. Okay, so what has she done about crime in the last 6 years, Deborah Graham? One question. Can an alderman make a difference on crime? Can one alderman make a difference?
I believe the aldermen collectively can make a difference in crime.
Aldermen, you mean all 50?
That's correct. And certainly even within the boundaries of your ward, I believe an alderman can make a difference in crime.
Well, is there less crime now than when Deborah Graham took over the reins of alderman 6 years ago?
As reported by Austin Weekly approximately 3 weeks ago, or maybe even a month, Austin Weekly reported that the homicides up in the Austin community alone was 67%.
Was up
It
67%?
was up 67%.
Over what
And
period,
that's
over what period of time?
That's over the period of time in which Alderman Graham has been Alderman of the 29th Ward.
67%, she's made it 67% worse? I wonder what Alderman Graham would say about that if she were here. Don't know. You just don't know.
And, you know, I mean,
Well, what do you have to say about that? If you were the alderman, if you were elected on April 7th, what do you think would happen over the next 4 years? Will it go up 67%? Will it go down? How much will it go down? Tell us a little bit about what you foresee happening on the crime side if you're the alderman.
I certainly perceive that crime will begin to decrease immediately. I would like to put things into place or put measures into place that will help assist in that. Even putting a committee together that will help me to identify where crime is happening the most and how we can most effectively deal with it. There are certain things that I'd like to see come to the city of Chicago.
Well, so we should let people know, you got some knowledge on that
That's correct.
because you are a policeman.
I am. Yes.
You've been a policeman for how many years?
Almost 21. August 1st will be 21 years.
And you are a lawyer.
Yes.
Well, let me just ask you, are you endorsing Chewy or Rahm, or are you staying neutral?
No, I'm endorsing Chuy Garcia.
You are.
Yes, I am.
Is it because you think he would get more cops out there because he'd get another 1,000 cops out there? Or do you think, do your views about Chewy have anything to do in favoring him to his views on crime?
In part, yes.
Well, let me just ask you real simple. Do you think if Chewy were elected, he'd get more cops out? He would somehow figure out in the budget to get 1,000 more cops?
I do. I believe Chuy would be a man of his word.
Okay.
And I think he will do everything within his power.
And will
to
he
get more
concentrate them where the crime is highest? And if he would do that, is the west side where you are, the 29th Ward, is that one of the areas where Chewy and whoever's there, if they're going to focus on crime, they're likely to get it to the 29th Ward?
I would hope so, yes. Because those are the areas that will need more police officers most. But
So tell me again, let me just open-ended, we'll get away from the mayor's race for a
Okay.
second and just say, I asked you the question, didn't get quite to get to your answer, is what would you do as alderman to reduce crime in the 29th Ward?
I think we have to explore new measures as well. Hiring more police officers isn't the complete answer. We do need to hire more police officers. But also, I think it would be very important to make sure that currently we're operating at operational strength. I believe that we're budgeted for approximately 10,000 police officers. And I would estimate that there are approximately a little over, close to 9,000 that are on the city payroll right now.
Why, is that intentional to keep the budget down? Or is it hard to find people who are qualified, who've passed the test?
I don't believe it's intentional. I think that we've gone through a hiring process over the last few years has added significant numbers onto the department. But attrition, we have to look at attrition as well. So I believe it's probably difficult at times to be able to keep up with the attrition rate. But more important, Jeff, I think we have to look into something that's been effective throughout the country that's used here in Evanston. It's used in Oak Park. We have to look at the possibility of adding police substations. That puts the police in the community. I think it's not an innovative idea because it's already been done.
What's the difference between a police station and a police substation?
Well, there is as you're aware, each police district has a police district, which is the building in which the police officers operate out of.
Right.
There are also, in some of these suburbs as well as throughout the country, smaller stations, which they call substations, or either posts, where we can put throughout these high crime communities that will be very effective in helping to get the community involved in policing again. But not only that, it gives the police an opportunity to know the area better, and it gives the community the opportunity to know the police better. A substation would be manned, it would be capable of where reports can be generated, where staff can be manned, or where the desk can be manned, and it allows the community an opportunity to come in. But it also keeps the police in their beat as well. Rather than having to go back to the central location, they can actually operate or come to the substation to use the restroom, to eat lunch.
And then go back out.
And then go back out to their beats.
So they're going to it's easier to be out on the beat more, is what you're saying.
And if you notice,
and you want them out on the beat.
Even the state's attorney uses that approach.
What would you do for that youthful group till you say get them involved? What would you do?
The
If you're now the alderman and you're trying to reduce crime, we said there are various things, but one of the things is get this group 18 to 25 or somewhat younger. What would you do? Would you help them get jobs? Would you get more basketball in the afternoons? What would you do?
No. The basketball, well, I'll help them get jobs. I saw a program once.
You don't think basketball helps in the afternoons? Some
It-
people say
yeah,
that.
It does help.
Gets them
It
off the
does help.
streets, yeah.
It absolutely
Okay.
does. It does have some benefits. But to be very quickly about it, I saw a program that I was very fond of. It was a mobile training center where a young lady had rented a bus. The bus was gutted out, and it was redeveloped or rehabbed to be a training center where young adults would come in and learn software programs so that they could become more viable in the community, as well as become better prospects when it comes down to job research. I loved it. When she was finished in one neighborhood, she was able to move to another neighborhood and train the young adults in that neighborhood as well. They received a certificate afterwards saying that I've been trained and I passed a certifying course. Now I know Microsoft Excel, I know Microsoft PowerPoint, I know Microsoft Word. I love an idea like that because it's something that's innovative and it hasn't been used, and we need to continue to push the envelope like that.
25% across CPS.
Okay.
25% in CPS were kids who are black or Hispanic read at grade level. They use these things like meets expectations, exceeds. If you just push, if you drill down and you say to some of these people, well, I've said to, the superintendent of the CPS, I said throughout the statistics, does that sound right? Yeah, that sounds right. So, what's Barbara Bird Bennett? Yeah, something like that. Superintendent, CPS?
Yes, she
Okay,
is.
so take it, 25%. My guess is, in your ward, 25% of the
I would
kids
say
read.
if that's the average throughout
So
the city.
75% are not reading at
On
grade
grade
level,
level.
and it doesn't get much better as the grades go up. So shouldn't we focus on reading?
And math.
We'd like to focus on everything,
We need to
You
focus
say on
on reading.
math?
Yes, we do.
and spend time on math. I don't mean, but for God's sakes, I think I can say it, I don't mean to take God's name in it. For God's sakes, I don't want to offend anybody here.
I'm not offended.
Okay, for God's sakes, we've had reform from 1995 to 2015, 20 years. The needle has not moved at all. We're still only have 25% of the kids reading at grade level, in large part. That's what we had before. Yes, there are some kids doing well. Yes, there are some kids at magnet schools and select enrollment kids. Yes, there are many more affluent families, affluent Hispanic, affluent white, affluent black. It's not perfect, but there is a correlation between affluence and how you're doing. It doesn't mean that a person who's poor can't learn how to read,
That's
but they
correct.
have fewer resources. They have fewer opportunities, maybe people reading to them at home, fewer books, okay? So there is this correlation. But the great majority of the kids in Chicago are not learning how to read, and I would guess and say the great majority in the 29th Ward are not learning how to read. Isn't it time, somebody said to Deborah Graham, what's Deborah Graham done in the last 6 years? She certainly hasn't done it on crime. Did she do anything on education?
She was, I believe, part of the aldermen that were responsible for closing.
So she helped close
in other
50
words, she didn't
schools.
support him. She didn't support them strongly enough.
She didn't
And
support
50
who?
The Chicago Teachers Union. And
Right.
50 schools closed throughout the city of Chicago. But
Do you think it was really
if I
that
could back
bad?
up just a little bit
Go,
very
you
quickly.
go right ahead. It's your ship.
If I could back up just a little
Yeah.
bit, I'm a strong advocate in reading programs. I remember very clearly when my children were growing up.
You have, you have 3 kids.
I have 3.
They've all learned, so far, it looks like they've learned how to read.
Yes, they.
One has gone on to college,
One
right?
is in college.
2 are
one's-
in high school and
yes,
Taft.
One's a senior. And
You're
one's
pretty
a
comfortable and
freshman.
confident that all 3 of your kids know
I'm
how to
reading very
read.
well. That's correct.
Reading very well.
But a
How,
lot,
how did they do it?
a lot of that was taught at home.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say taught, but supported and emphasized at home. And I'd certainly like to see the programs that they were involved in as children continued. One I remember very clearly because it required that the parents read with the children and sign a supporting statement saying that we read a certain amount of books this week. I don't know where those programs have gone, but we need them back. And I
We don't
remember
have,
very
we
clearly.
don't, so that your kids had reading programs that were effective and working,
I
and they
read
seem
them
to
so
have
much,
disappeared.
it was called Read More, that was a program, and it was very effective because my children loved coming home reading.
And you liked reading as a parent to them, and that was very effective.
I think
Is
it
what
was
you're
very
saying, when
effective.
you were reading to your kids, that was effective in teaching them how to read.
Right, and it was something that
Okay.
was supported by the school system as well.
But see, the thing is, okay, you married how many years?
24 years.
24 years.
Yes.
Imagine we'd call it a close, warm marriage.
I'm sorry, a close.
Well, I'm not getting into that. I mean,
Okay.
what I mean is you both were involved in in raising your children.
Yes, we were, absolutely.
Despite the fact that you've, had working as a lawyer, working as a policeman. I don't know, was your wife working as well outside
No,
the
my
home?
wife was,
She was
she
stay-at-home
was at home
mom?
for 14 years.
Okay, so she was doing a lot of that, but you were not uninvolved,
That's
even
correct.
though you were working
Very
outside the
involved.
home? Now, there are homes where there's maybe only a single parent, and I'm not saying they can't perform as a single parent, but it's much tougher. The burdens on a single parent are greater than if you have two parents. There's some homes where the single parent is not involved. And all I'm saying is when that happens, we can't just say yes, as the mayor says, get parents involved. I've heard Rahm Emanuel say that. But when you can't do that, we have to find substitutes, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We can't abandon these kids because they don't have two parents heavily involved in their education.
And that's where the job of the alderman comes in as well.
Well, sometimes to find substitutes, but get on CPS. How about charter schools? Do they provide an option? Do they provide competition? Well, let me just ask you, is competition good in general?
Competition is very good.
Okay, do charter schools provide competition?
Yes, they do.
So does that mean you favor charter schools?
I favor the Chicago public school system.
But charter
I-
schools
I'm-
are a part, charter schools are a part of the CPS.
Yes, they
They
are.
are public schools, they actually receive less. They have to go scrounge for their building costs, but their operating costs are supposed to be paid for by CPS. And they are viewed as a public school, if you
Right.
talk to anybody.
Yes, they are.
Okay, okay. So I'm asking
I'm not
once
against
again.
them.
Oh, you're not against them?
No.
Are you for them?
I'm for the little, in the sense that, let me say this.
Yeah.
I believe that our school system should be competitive. I look at it like this. I used to live very close to a Jewel and Dominic's. And so I had a choice of where I wanted to shop. They became competitive with one another because one would drop a price on apples and the other would drop a price on orange. So it depended on where I go to get the apple or orange. Now, when you close a Dominic's, my choice is gone. So now
Unless you're astute enough to say, here's a new choice. Because and it's not your choice is gone. It's not right.
I just have to drive a little
In the
further.
free market, okay, people forgot, in the free market, when Dominic's went out of business
Did I
and it
bring up a bad
closed,
subject?
did you notice, have their stores who sometimes came in and bought that very same store and they provided grocery services, but it was another name. Have you ever heard of Mariano's?
Yes.
Did Mariano's buy many Dominic's stores and they changed?
They did.
Now, why the heck can't we, when we close schools, say, if there's another school, charter school, voucher school, pro-school, I don't care what. If they want to buy it and they want to give you that same competition you had, why don't we encourage that? Ram, you wouldn't be running like a scared chicken if you had closed 50 schools and made every effort to say to these parents, but here's a new option. Here's somebody who's going to be right in that same place. It's going to be different teachers, different approach. That's competition, isn't
Jeff,
it?
a Dominic's closed very close to my house. Another grocery store is in there now.
Okay.
My choice is back.
Competition.
Competition is
So
back.
you like charter schools if they provide an option? Am
That's
I
right.
putting your words in your mouth, or do you like that?
No, I like that.
And what about Deborah Graham? Deborah, do you like charter schools if there's competition? We don't know. She's not here. She didn't care enough. I don't mind. I don't even know Deborah I don't know her at all. I don't care if she shows up, but you should care because now you've got competition. You got Deborah Graham competing for your vote on April 7th with Chris Taliaferro. And you can find out more about Chris is at 29thward.com.
29thward.com.
Deborah, I don't know where you're going to find out about her. She's not here. It's not our job. Not my problem, right?
That's true.
So we don't know. Not your problem. There are 19 aldermanic runoffs. Crime is important for many of those if you talk to people. Education is important. Economic development is important. All of these things are important, okay? And you have competition. You have at least two choices in
Yes.
every one of those races. In the 29th ward, you got this incumbent who Chris has said crime got 67% worse.
Yes, indeed.
You got this incumbent, Deborah Graham, education, he doesn't know what she's done. He's outlined to you what he would do to reduce crime, to improve education. You can find out more about him by going to 29thward.com. Deborah didn't want to be here. If you've got a race and you're in the second ward, there's a guy, Brian Hopkins, and there's Alex Patterson. We invited both of them. They didn't have time to come talk to you. If you're in the second ward, yes, you'll get chances to see it. Or you can watch Chicago Tonight, where we had like Millie Santiago and Ray Suarez running in, what's that, the 31st ward, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's 31st. We had them on for a half an hour. Chicago Tonight had them on for like 7 minutes. 4 times more. It sounds like a detergent ad. 4 times cleaner, okay? 4 times. I'm not saying anything. Look, I love WTTW too, but the best they could give you was 7 minutes. Maybe that's why some people don't want to come down here, because we drill down. We've really learned a lot about your views about reducing crime, right?
Yes, we have. Thank
Okay.
you.
And about improving education.
Yes.
And about choice and competition. So, that was the second ward. What else do we have? The 11th ward, we invited both those folks. Nobody really got back to us. John Kozler is 26. Can you really be thoughtful and mature and savvy enough at 26 to be an alderman? That's a rhetorical question. We might have asked that to John, but he didn't want us to drill down, so he just didn't. He actually said he would be here, and then when I called to confirm, he never got back to me.
Wow.
Well, that's not a sign of maturity. And there's Patrick Thompson, whose claim to fame is he's grandson of Richard J. Daley. He lives in his house, and he never got back to us. So I say to folks in the 2nd ward and the 11th ward, pox on all your houses, pox on both your houses. 24th ward, that was interesting. Vetrus Boyce and Michael Scott could be fine folks. Nobody cared enough to come here and talk to you. Pox on both their houses. 29th ward, Deborah Graham and Chris Taliaferro. Chris, you're here, right?
I'm here.
People know your views. They know where you stand on the issues.
Absolutely.
Deborah, not so much. 6 years. 6 years. She increased crime, and we don't know what she did. Well, she didn't. That's, in my opinion, overstatement. But crime increased 67% while she was the alderman. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
How can you run on that? Maybe that's why she didn't come here. Maybe her guy, Mike Carson, made a smart move. He didn't want me to drill down and find out. I don't know, Mike. That's your decision. Okay, 31st Ward, we were there. Millie Santiago was here. Ray Suarez was here. He's the vice mayor. He's the alderman, 24-year incumbent. We gave each about 15 minutes each. Couldn't seem to get them on the same day. Millie couldn't make it up here. It's a little strange. Millie marched out and she said, here, there's shakedowns going on. And she had an affidavit, which they gave me after the show. I gave to Ray when he showed up, and we examined him on that. I don't know, TTW did it with, I think it was Phil Ponce, Millie Santiago and Ray Suarez. I don't think there was a mention of shakedowns, nothing about the affidavit. And yet, Millie told me, you can watch this, you can go to youtube.com/publicaffairs.tv, you'll see Millie say, yeah, I gave this information about the affidavit of shakedowns to Carol Marine. Just an interesting observation that, difference in approach. Okay, 36th Ward, Omar Aquino running against Gilbert Villegas. Omar showed up easily. Gilbert Villegas, we never heard from. Just didn't care about talking to you, okay? 41st Ward, Mary O'Connor, the incumbent, going against Anthony Napolitano. Mary had no interest, never heard back from her as to wanting to be on the show. Because as I said, Barack Obama wanted to be, and he found the time. Mary O'Connor, Barack Obama had the time, he becomes president. So she's facing Anthony Napolitano. He's the challenger. Anthony showed up. You know his positions, you know his views. No endorsement, just highlighting who wanted to talk with you and who didn't. You being our viewers. Michelle Smith didn't show up. She's the incumbent from the 43rd Ward. Caroline Vickery did show up. She's the challenger, a whole show, just like Chris Taliaferro. Got to know Caroline. She got to know you. You don't endorse, but when you're trying to decide between Michelle Smith and Caroline Vickery, and Caroline showed up to talk to you, like Chris Taliaferro showed up to talk to you, it says something, doesn't it? And then finally, the 45th Ward, pox on both your houses, the incumbent, John Arena, the challenger, John Garrido. He didn't have time. Not John Garrido, not John Arena. So the point is, if you had to say, and you had to wrap it up, and you were talking to the viewers, what would you say is the most important thing as they go to vote, which will be tomorrow, April 7th? We're taping this on March 24th. But when Chris Taliaferro in the 29th Ward talks to your viewers, your voters, your potential voters, what do you want them thinking about as they go in the booth and they're trying to decide between the incumbent and Chris Taliaferro?
I think our viewers should have on their mind, especially when they look at the works over the last 6 years, has Alderman Deborah Graham fulfilled her duties as an alderman? Is she a part of the community? Has she been a part of the community? But most important, has anything changed under the last 6 years? And I would say they have not. There's not been any major economic development in the area. Crime has increased. Alderman Graham has bought a pawn shop and a liquor store to the community.
She seems to be doing stuff with liquor stores. Give us just a minute on that. What's going on with the liquor stores?
You know, it seems to be very popular with Alderman Graham. She's receiving financial benefit from that, or financial
Campaign contributions
from liquor stores.
From liquor stores, and what
Yes.
do they get from her?
Well, I know one of them got to open. Alderman Graham lifted a moratorium just so that store could open.
So was it the
And
city
she
council
received $5,000.
had put a moratorium on liquor stores in the 29th Ward?
That's correct.
No more liquor stores?
Well,
Moratorium.
right, that's correct, along Madison Street, and Alderman Graham.
Oh, so no liquor stores along Madison. You thought you had enough. They didn't ban them, right?
That's
The ones
correct.
who were there got to stay. What somebody wanted in on Madison Street, and she let them in?
She let them in. She lifted it.
Now, was
she
there,
went
do you
before
think there was,
city
what do they
council.
call that? When the U.S. attorney looks at that, I'm not saying, because you're a lawyer, you gotta be careful when you make an allegation, but might there have been a quid pro quo? Like, here's a campaign contribution, or better yet, Graham says open the liquor store, the city council opens it, Graham gets a contribution.
Well, I think the contribution was received 6 months before.
6 months before, isn't it even more of a, now,
It
I'm
is.
not saying it is, but if you were investigating this, do you think the U.S. attorney might say, oh, so they gave you a campaign contribution, and then you decided to give them a liquor license, essentially, right?
You know, and she's not here to defend that, and I certainly think, as you
Everybody-
said earlier,
yeah.
she should have been here to defend it.
See, I'd love to know what Deborah Graham would have to say about that. Would she deny quid pro quo? I don't know. So,
I say
but the main thing is, are liquor stores the way for economic development? Are they the way to get youth involved? Are they the way to get good jobs for youth, get more liquor stores?
absolutely not.
Why would she want another liquor store?
You know
Would you
what?
say it's an underserved market? Like sometimes people say there's not enough fresh produce, it's a fresh produce desert. Was Deborah Graham saying it's a liquor store desert? We just don't have enough liquor stores in the 29th Ward?
I think that's the extent of her vision.
I think people know what you're about. I think people are ready to make a vote on April 7th. I think people are ready to make a vote in the 19 wards on April 7th, the 19 wards in which there's a runoff. I think people are ready to make an intelligent, thoughtful vote between Chuy Garcia and Rahm Emanuel for mayor. And the main thing, folks, we want to thank our guest in the 29th Ward, Chris Taliaferro, for coming here, facing up to any questions we had for him. Thank you so much, Chris
Thank you,
Taliaferro.
Jeff, for having me. I appreciate it.
And we so much want to thank our viewers for staying with us. We just remind you, come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.
It's going to be a good election. We're dead even.